Before we get started, though, here, we're going to watch a video. So hopefully we've got a video to watch. All right. Please welcome to stage, big round of applause for David J. Gomez, who is the TikTok head of regional key accounts. David, come on up, have a seat right over here, and we are going to talk about getting your piece of the $250 billion creator economy. So, David, I want to start with this, though. You've been at TikTok for a little while, but you were at P&G before that. I mean, you lived the P&G lifestyle. So let's talk a little bit about what you saw there in the traditional ads that you used to do, and now contrast that with today and how brands should approach TikTok. Not how they are, but it's not really about making ads, right? It's not like what you did at P&G.
Well, yeah, we essentially it's making TikToks, right?
Yeah.
So TikTok definitely changed how advertising, I'd like to say so. And so let's start first with traditional ads, right? Traditional ads, they typically have very strict guidelines, right? You brief agencies, you create advertisements that are strictly following the voice and the character. So you're pretty much boxed into certain rules. But then when TikTok came in, you started to work with the creators, work with smaller production companies to make sure that you are able to tap into micro communities, which literally leverages authenticity. And one common thing that I've seen really is the overall broad that before it was more one way, social media, mass media. Today, it's really democratization of content and authenticity. So really, traditional ads are more about sticking into what works, but TikToks is about working with creators and developing more authentic content.
Yeah, it's authenticity. It's being true to who you are and what you are versus trying to be true to a brand brief, right?
Definitely, yes.
Yeah, so how do you change the mindset of the brand managers you used to work with to let go? I feel like I've been having this conversation for 20 years, but how do you convince them to let their brand go?
So, funny thing, because I can look back at my actual experience as the brand director for Ambipure, where it was my first foray into TikTok. So I could highly relate to these brands who try to really, how do I understand this thing? So you mentioned a very powerful keyword, which is let go. And it's really hard for a brand that is sizable enough because they mostly think about the risk rather than the benefit. So you'd have to try to envision them, but firstly, there's huge benefit in tapping this. But on managing the risks, what's the beauty about TikTok today and with multiple creators is that it's easier and lower hanging fruit to do test and learns. Risks are more managed. And in fact, I have clients, very popular financial client today, who actually starts from picking a set of creators, organically post them, and see if something ticks. And when that few creatives ticks, they start putting a couple of $100s. And then when that starting gets KPIs, they start funding it with bigger campaigns and creatives. So then you really manage the risk, and then they start letting go because they know that the risks are quite managed.
Then they see that it works. How do you, as a brand, work with creators? How did that financial services firm find their 10, 20, 30 creators to start with?
Okay. I was in a networking event and I got asked this last night as well. So typically, there are many...
This one's better.
There are two really basic ways. So I work with brands like Netflix, Disney, Shopee, Lazada, and all that. So There are two basic ways. One is that they brief us, and we work with our creative partnerships teams, which work with creator networks like HepMail or Amplify, who already do their own recruitment services, right? The other way is me and my team. We sometimes get exposed to certain creators. Ourselves, as we go through TikTok, we find creators that we feel resonates with the brand. So we personally recommend them. So there are many ways, but typically I would go and tap into these creator networks. But last but not the least, creators who are just good at their craft, these brand managers who are into this will eventually find them.
Yeah, and then once you find them, how do you test out what's working and what's not? I mean, think about what you were doing with this financial services company again, where you're like, we're going to test it. How do you test? How do you create a test? And then how do you know when it's working?
Okay, that's another complex thing because it really depends on the KPIs or sorry, what the brands are looking for, right? There are brands that are just looking, hey, I want my brand love to increase. And there are others who just say, hey, I want more loan applications, for example. So when they tap onto creators and say it's a group of creators, they as brands can see either the brand lifts or literally, how many loans are cutting through because of this certain creator. Right. So I think being clear on what the objective first, and then we can definitely experiment per creator on how that turns out.
Now, what do you recommend to your clients working with creators? Is it try to do it transactionally, bring people in, and then move on to the next campaign, or do you try and push them towards longer-term partnerships, and does that work?
So this is a very good question. We get asked that a lot. At the end of the day, I think it's a mix. And the reason for that is there are strategies that require constant, like look at Duolingo. Duolingo, for example, it's not a creator per se, but a mascot, right? So whenever this mascot keeps getting shown, the brand recall, you don't have to say Duolingo. When you see the mascot, it already sends the message.
The bird is the bird, yes.
So automatically, you will just need your second layer message, which is why do you want to subscribe to it? So it really depends on the strategy and the objectives and the barriers of the brand. But it's a mix, and if you'd like to discuss certain specifics, I'd love to have another chat with you.
No, I'm just curious about how you think about that, because I think, when I look at it, I think as long-term partnerships for creators are better because you don't have to worry about hustling, and you can really lean in and actually do things and build together and really understand the brand well and understand how to collab.
I would say pros and cons because this day and age, things change so fast. Yep. And so if you get used to a certain partnership, that while that's beneficial, how do you get to the next phase of the evolution of the creator economy? So
I'm not saying you have to be monogamous. I mean, you can be polygamous, just be polygamous with multiple creators. No, I get what you're saying though.
Indeed.
Things do change quickly. How do you guys make it easy for people to find that? I mean, you Creator Marketplace is a great product. What are some of the other things that you guys do to help it make it easier for brands and creators to connect?
Cool. Well, first and foremost, yes, the TikTok Creator Marketplace is a great place. We also have what we call the TikTok Creative Exchange, and funnily enough, one thing, related to that is that we also have products like what we call branded missions. Yep. So branded missions is a product that brands can use that they post a challenge to creators. We post this challenge to creators. Creators submit their content. And brands get to choose which creator that they would like to put more boosts in or get more work with. So long story short, if you're a creator and you see a mission uploaded, highly advise, if you think it's within your purview or with your craft, do it. And it might be the best way for you to be tapped by a brand.
So if you do that, if you put things in, I mean, I have this vision on my mind, which is probably wrong, of a creator spending a week trying to craft the perfect thing to put up there. Do you recommend that they try and go to that level, or just do something relatively quick, true on brand, and put that out there and see what happens? What have you seen works there?
It's a good question. For me, the way I've seen it personally is that it's a game of numbers. Yep. So really, do 80-for-20. Mm-hmm. Do 80-for-20 would be my advice. Anything can work in TikTok, but the more you could do and the more you could try, the more you could participate, I think the better your chances.
Yeah, so the right answer for creators is just get it up there, do a lot of them, get yourself out there, don't spend too much sweat on any one, and just see what happens, right?
That would be my advice, but I can be proven wrong.
Hey, you're the expert. you're the expert. So let's talk about a brand that wants to make videos on their own. Are brands good creators?
Oh wow, there are brands that are very good creators, but it took them long
Right.
to get there, right? You have to walk, run, and fly. Meaning, before you get to be a really good creator yourself, you'll have to make a lot of mistakes. You'll really, again, numbers game. You'll have to keep posting, learning. Not that I'm endorsing directly, but there are brands like Ryanair who just really tries and experiments from one tone of voice to another tone of voice over time, and they get to see what clicks and what they're. But really, my favorite are brands that look at the comments to learn what they should do next. And I always tell my clients that TikTok is not just an entertainment platform. It's not just a platform for creators to express, but for creators and brands to know and hear directly because of high engagement from the users themselves.
Right. You learn a lot from being in the comments and hearing what people say, right?
Yeah, I spend a lot of time in the comments
Even
myself.
if you might not like it. How does a brand build a team that gets TikTok? Should they be hiring creators? Should they be hiring people who've done traditional media and try to turn them into TikTokers? How do you think about that?
I think the simplest starting point is leveraging the resources you already have. First and foremost, your phone. Have you installed TikTok and tried it, right? Secondly, learn from the users themselves. So I worked with brands like Dyson and Philips where we actually worked with them to have a company competition where they use their own employees. They challenge their employees, hey, if you were to make a TikTok for our brand, and you know the winners of these were actually used as TikToks. You could see them in the actual Dyson and Philips.
See, I love that approach because, look, research shows that 1 out of every 12 people in the U.S. and other places, 1 out of 12 people are creators of some sort. They self-identify as creators. Any company of any size has a lot of creators in it. Most of them are hidden. People don't know they're there.
Exactly.
I love that they're tapping into finding out who in their employee base is actually good.
And you'll be surprised. Some of them are actually high follower counts too. You'll never know.
Yeah, you never know, and maybe they'll get fired. No, I was the Shake Shack example was that the person who worked at a chicken. What was the chicken company? Anyway, one of the fast food companies in the U.S. who worked for Chick-fil-A, and she was making videos about her employee meals and getting like millions of people watching and did a great job for Chick-fil-A. And then Chick-fil-A came to her and said, "Oh, that's not allowed as an employee to do." And she was like, "I love Chick-fil-A. Of course I'll stop doing it. I didn't know it was in the manual, but you know what? Maybe I'll do videos for other people. And it's not the end, it's just the beginning." And then 2 days later, Shake Shack, a competitor, came in, and then she's reviewing sandwiches for Shake Shack while she's working for Chick-fil-A. That was a fail on Chick-fil-A's part a little bit. I mean, I wonder what anyway, I won't go too much into it, but you're better off just taking advantage of your employees there, right? And doing the right thing with them.
And it goes to show really that TikTok is meant for creators, regardless of where they are. They could be the employee, the uncle.
They're everywhere.
Exactly.
That's the thing, they're everywhere. Okay, a couple of examples of good brands that you like. We talked about Duolingo and the Duo Bird, which the little mascot is awesome, and that team. By the way, if you want to know Zaria Parvez on LinkedIn, you should all follow her because she's the 24-year-old person at Duolingo that makes that account happen, and she's very upfront about the challenges and what she's done, and she's amazing. So, but who else?
Okay. It's always easy to find a cool brand that resonates, but what is really difficult in the craft are brands that have a lot of guidelines too. So if you're managing a brand or a company that has a bit of a set of guidelines that makes it a bit more difficult for you, then that's a challenging feat. Like, for example, I would look at the likes of Disney.
Right.
For example, because Disney is a big company, they have a lot of requirements to run campaigns. But if you look, one example I'd like to share is the Little Mermaid campaign. We all know how that performed globally, but in the Philippines, they actually experimented a lot as Disney. And it actually contributed to this Little Mermaid being a hit in Philippines.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So I work with the team directly there, and it's amazing how they find that fine balance between what they cannot do and what they should do to find success in the platform. So that's one example. On top of my mind as well, DBS, closer to home. DBS, they were early, Development Bank of Singapore for those. who may not be aware. They experimented a lot with what is happening today. So, for example, there was this popular filter where you have these eyes and mouth talking.
Right.
And they had this concept of, hey, if every piece of item on my desk would give me financial advice, how would that look like? So, they're working with really tough guidelines, but they get creative. And I think that's what TikTok is all about, right? How do you think out of the box? How do you express yourself authentically, but still being in that box? So I would for the brands out there, just a quick search online, you'll probably find those exciting brands, but really the challenge lies on those that have a lot of guidelines and limitations.
And still can come through and break through and still break through. Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about sort of a middle ground here between creating yourself and being on creator channels, which is UGC, the new definition of UGC. And by the way, 10 a.m. tomorrow, in the junior ballroom, Melissa Laurie of Oysterly is going to be talking about UGC and how to use UGC for great benefit. I won't talk about it too much here, but how do you feel about brands going on TikTok and finding creators, having them create stuff to put on their own channels?
Well, that actually happens today. Unfortunately, I won't be able to give exact names.
Yeah, no, totally.
But typically, it takes a lot of vetting process still, especially for the bigger brands that we work with. Although I would take a gander that smaller brands and SMBs, by the way, I think we've got, 15 million SMBs in SEA finding great success on our platform and our e-commerce. They already do that. And whether it be from organic posts or organic live streams, they do need to tap on creators, because these creators at the end of the day would give them insights on how do we connect what the brand needs and what the community is looking for. And sometimes it may not be just them making the TikToks themselves, but giving ideas on what directions they can take. So highly advise that if your brand is not doing this yet,
go do it. And what will you say for creators about advice for them to make themselves more attractive to brands, or more appealing to brands? What should creators do to hopefully, do a better job getting brand deals?
Okay. I love that question because it's a game changer, right? Back then, the only way to get this opportunity, you'd have to go through a complex system to get your name in front of a marketing director, right? Today, thanks to TikTok, any creator can be the next big endorser or influencer or whatnot. So that's what makes the platform really amazing. My advice, and as an actual person who chose these creators myself at one point and advising, know that the brands have their own limitations, right? They have their own brand language, characteristics. So it may take a lot of work, but research about it and see if it has a high overlap with yourself. And honestly, it's then a waiting game, right? You wait for the brand to have an activation or campaign. They may have a hashtag, they may have a branded missions. That's it. This is your opportunity. You've been waiting for this day. You have a list of 100 brands. You've always been waiting for them, and now that they're go fire and go and participate. So I think it's about preparation, knowing your audience, and then when the day comes, take a chance.
Go out and take a chance and use it and jump on it and see if you can break through the noise. Yep, absolutely. All right, so let's talk about best practices overall for brands. You spend a lot of time with brands teaching them how to and helping them get and break through on TikTok. What are some tips, hints for a brand to think about getting started on TikTok? What should they do first?
Okay, first and foremost, we have this really awesome website called Creative Center.
Yeah.
Just search it. In fact, there's a Creative Center chatbot or machine AI or a prompt there where you can literally ask it anything. Like, how do I create TikToks? Can you come up with a script for me? This is my brand. This is my challenge. So really a fantastic tool. Go there and use it, and it'll help you get started, right? And then we'll have other materials. Honestly, just search again on the
Yeah, the Creator Center.
Creator
What is
Center.
it? Creator Center?
Yes.
You guys have so many websites, I lose track of them too. I'm like, wait, which one is this? But it's all very helpful. I think it's great how much work you do. But yeah, I totally get it. Anyway.
Right. But for me, the most advice I commonly give to almost everyone who asks me this is think about what the hook is. TikTok is fully skippable. So which means think about it having cliffs, right? The first 20 microseconds has a cliff. You'll know, your thumbs will know it. And then the 1 second has a cliff, the 2 second has a cliff, and then the 6 second has a cliff. So each of these is your created material have some form of hook in each of this cliff that makes them stay. If there is, most likely it's going to be a powerful material.
Yeah, I tell people to just watch a lot of TikTok and learn from it. But that hook, that beginning hook, you know, we used to say in the early days of YouTube, it's like you got to catch them in the first 3 seconds, first 5 seconds. Don't put your credits in there like TV people do or your opening. Now it's like the first, 30 nanoseconds, right?
I agree. The attention span is getting smaller and smaller, right? And if you want to know and see the latest best practices, we do have what we call the TikTok Ad Awards. It's the first time we're doing it ever in Southeast Asia.
Wow.
Malaysia is actually happening tonight. Singapore is happening next week on the 15th. We've got thousands of submissions, 1,000+ submissions. So for those that are really interested to see what are the best brands, what are the best practices, stay tuned. The results are coming up very soon.
Is that a live event? Are you actually doing it in person, or are you doing it?
We're doing it in person.
In Singapore.
In Singapore.
And no, I know that. Everyone's invited.
Hopefully,
right?
we'll have more space in the coming years.
Yeah, in the future. Yeah, I think it's a great idea, and really being able to see what brands can use to model that behavior off of is really, really important. Okay, so you're a brand, you're on TikTok, you're doing pretty well. Maybe you've hit a cliff, or maybe you've hit a wall. You haven't fallen off the cliff. But how do you kind of jumpstart growth again? And how do you think about, well, you're doing all right, but you really want to do great? What are some tips and tricks to sort of jumpstart your creativity as a brand?
Like you said, right? As long as you keep using TikTok, I doubt you'll have enough inspirations. Secondly, you can do creator search. Literally type creator search insights on TikTok, and you'll see lots of good stats there to help you as a creator to look at what is next or where can I look at. Third, again, go at hashtags, and within those hashtags, you'll find other hashtags and comments. So really, as I mentioned, the platform itself is full of inspiration, and that's what TikTok is made for, right? We've got tools, and it's designed for discovery for both users and creators as well.
Right. All right. We're going to do a little quick thing. We've got a couple minutes left. I want to talk about a couple of things really quickly that you can do as a brand, and whether it's the right thing to do or not. So, you talked about hashtags. How important is hashtag following and trend following for a brand? For
a brand?
Yeah.
Well, it's important in a sense that they get to learn from it, but also leveraging it. So in using it, say for example, we had a recent campaign with Singapore Tourism Board. The hashtag is Made in Singapore.
Yeah.
And we did it in 7 markets. And it was a great platform to not only drive the branding, which is made from Singapore, but also to drive participation from anyone who loved to go to Singapore or would like to experience Singapore. So it was critical for the success of the campaign on TikTok.
So in that case, they made their own hashtag for people to build things around, which is great. What about regular posting? What do you tell people? Is it every day? Is it 5 times a day? Is it every week? What's the regularity?
I think, of course, before we go to regularity, the most important thing is authenticity.
Okay.
As long as the content is authentic, we believe that it has the power and potential, because the platform itself delivers even small views to anyone. You know, it gives, it's an equalizer. And in terms of posting, usually what we would recommend our brands is to post often. And define often, it could be every day, it could be every other day. It depends on what their capacity is, but we highly recommend that they post frequently, because they also learn from it. Every post, you learn something. And you just keep getting better at it and getting better and more efficient at it.
Right, do you have to be funny?
It helps. It helps in real life.
Yeah.
So we would highly advise to tap, again, it's authenticity. If you think the tone, tonality, and delivery and the message is authentic you, which is funny, go ahead. But if it is not authentically you, highly advise that you find something closer to it that is authentically you. It's a platform for authenticity and discovery, so as long as you stick with that, we believe that you'll eventually find your way around.
Yeah, there's kind of a visual language to TikTok in many ways, a lot of the TikToks you see, and a lot of that comes by using CapCut. Do you recommend that brands use CapCut?
Oh man, I love CapCut. And yes, brands have been adapting CapCut. Tells me that they've saved production time and thinking time, like I'm grabbing numbers off my head, like 2x, 3x. CapCut is a game changer, not just for big businesses, but small businesses as well, and even creators themselves. And it's not about just using CapCut, but you can create templates on CapCut as a creator to get your word out and your content out there.
Okay, in the minute or so we have left, give me a creator or two that you love, that you follow, that maybe people don't know that they should be following.
All right. My favorite one, because I love watching movies, is Movies is Therapy. I think it's the
Movies is Therapy. Okay, that's a new
Right.
one for me. All right.
I think he's a widely followed creator, but essentially he just gives authentic reviews about the latest movies, Netflix series, etc., and gives me a good list to follow. So I never run out of things to watch whenever I just want to binge watch or spend 1 hour of watching.
1 hour of watching, yeah.
And then I think there's this guy who saved my life once because I was able to find a really good restaurant here in Singapore. I think it was Gab Chua or Gab Chua. I can give you the name
Yeah.
later. He just eats at these random restaurants. He says himself that he's not paid, and so I trust his reviews. And I found 2 or 3 restaurants because of him.
See, that's like, I'll need a good place to eat tomorrow. I might have to get that. All right. David J. Gomez from TikTok, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Give it up, please.